Yes. Welcome, everyone. It's Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's June 28th, 2019. A lot of great stuff going on. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. Anything you need to know about the cannabis community, industry, and beyond. The Marijuana Times, there's always stuff going on at the federal level, at the state level. Is just the interactions between the two, the problems that arise from such, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight, including basically how... It's a thing we talked about a lot, how legalization is being implemented and how poorly it is being implemented in many ways in the United States, especially. We'll also talk about a new show on HBO. They did an interview with John Boehner, talking about marijuana. Of course, it's a controversial area for a lot of people in the cannabis community, controversial topic. Also, Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania did a big listening tour around the state regarding recreational marijuana legalization, and now he's done with that. And he wants to talk about it and all of that. We'll talk about all of that, of course, coming up. First, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside. Natureside, nature-side.com. And they're organic, all-natural pesticides. They're an awesome sponsor of the show. They're an awesome company with awesome products. If you don't want to put harmful chemicals on what you're growing, well, you shouldn't. You don't want to use banned pesticides. You want to be regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing, and all these things can be accomplished with Natureside, nature-side.com. Proud sponsor of Cannabis News. They're awesome. Go check them out. This first story from marijuanatimes.org from Foster Winans, Inside America's Failing Pot Experiment. Kind of an in-your-face title, but if you read the article, he's not talking about legalization itself being a failure, but the failing of the way it's been implemented. As I said, it's a theme that we've talked about a lot on this show for a long time. Well, since the beginning of this show, and it's something I've talked about in my writing, going back even farther, the haphazard way in which legalization is being implemented in the United States. Foster goes through in the beginning and goes through all the positive aspects, the many positive aspects, the many successes that the cannabis community has brought, and all that's wonderful. But in the end, what you're left with is federal illegality, some state illegality, a lot of jurisdictions that don't allow businesses and things like that. You can go from one place to another, and, the same activity has wildly different consequences, different charges. It's legal to do so. To do something in some place, it's not legal to do something in another place. Foster also goes through and lists and links to a lot of different stories that show that prohibition is still alive and well, and the nefarious effects that it's still having on society. There's a ton of those stories. You want to check it out. It's at marijuanatimes.org, obviously, and linked in the description of this video, as are all stories that I talk about. He said it's impossible to describe in a single article just how big a mess, how tangled a ball of string is America's experiment with legalizing marijuana. It's because there are few standards. Central authorities are scattered, disorganized, and understaffed. There's no comprehensive mechanism or agency responsible for protecting public health, and what's legal or not depends on where you happen to be at the moment. Philadelphia police will ignore you if you smoke pot in public, but a few miles away in the suburbs, you'll be whisked away in handcuffs on your way to a holding cell and a bail hearing. And again, as I've said, this is a theme that we've gone over many, many times. The people that are responsible for implementing legalization are not good at their jobs. It's not going to be successful most of the time. There's going to be delays. There's going to be problems. There's going to be failures, like we saw in New York and various other places. And even after legalization, there's going to be failures look at Maine. We'll talk about Maine probably next week. New regulations, new adult use legalization regulations are going in to effect there soon. Hopefully their program will be up and running by next year. But they legalized in 2016, and they're just now getting around to where the governor just signed rules for adult use legalization over 2.5 years later. It's really crazy stuff. And which dovetails into our next story. A lot of people have a problem with John Boehner for obvious reasons. And there's a lot to have a problem with him over. There's a lot of problems. And when people say, this is BS, John Boehner is now going to come in here and make money on this industry, an industry he kept from being legalized many times when he was Speaker of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. All that's valid. Absolutely. All of it's valid. If you don't want to buy any products associated with him or Acreage Holdings or whoever he works with, more power to you. You want to get on Facebook and tell other people not to? Great. Go do all of that. Tell your friends, say, this is what John Boehner owns this company, or he's part of this company, or he's a consultant with this company. Don't buy these products for that reason. That's fine. I might even be there with you. I mean, it depends on, on price and availability and things like that, but still. But in the end, the thing about John Boehner is it's a couple things. One, people change their minds. People evolve on this issue. Many people evolved on the issue of cannabis, and more continue to do so all the time. It's kind of one of the points of what we do here with the education and information and getting the word out and spreading the truth about cannabis, getting people to evolve their positions away from where they were under the haze of the propaganda of the prohibition years, the dare years, all that crap, and coming to see our things in our perspective. So that's a success with John Boehner. A lot of people say, well, he's doing it for the money. As I pointed out before, John Boehner could go to any corporation and be a consultant, or any law firm, and make six figures for doing nothing. That's not a problem. He can make millions in many places. He's John Boehner. He used to be Speaker of the House. He could just do speeches. He can make speeches and make a couple million a year. But he decided to go with cannabis, which brings me to my final point about John Boehner. We need all the firepower we can get. He's a pretty big gun, not as big as he used to be, admittedly, but still a pretty big gun in the political world. And to have him on our side and pushing this issue and doing things like this with this promo I'm about to show you, this HBO show, getting the word out there and making people who may not be receptive to our message, maybe they're a little more receptive, and they say, well, John Boehner, he's the guy, the Speaker of the House, the guy who used to cry all the time. We like him. We're conservative Republicans. We like John Boehner. Maybe we'll look at this issue a little bit differently. That's great. We need all the firepower we can get, because this isn't over. As we just talked about in the last story, we got a long way to go and a lot of things to tighten up. And it's going to take many, many years. And hey, the more big guns, the better. Now, it's a video from HBO, Axios official promo for their new show on HBO. This is a preview of an interview they did with John Boehner.
Once there's legalization of some sort on the side of the federal government, you're going to see all kinds of big players, big tobacco, big alcohol. There's going to be tens of billions of dollars roll into this industry overnight.
Excuse me. There you go. HBO, Sundays at 7. And a lot of people are afraid of that too. Big pharma, big tobacco, big alcohol, all these big investments coming into the cannabis industry. And as I said before, I'm not all that worried about it. As long as there's a lot of competition. The problem comes in, and the reason there is a big pharma, a big tobacco, a big alcohol, is because they use the regulations that exist, oftentimes the regulations that they themselves have written to cap the industry and keep out smaller, more nimble, better competitors who just can't keep up with it. They can't keep up with the regulations, the red tape, the licensing, all that stuff. So in the end, what you end up with is, because of government power being used to crush smaller competitors by these big corporations, you're just left with the big corporations. And that's a problem. But if you have big corporations, medium, small companies, niche companies, just wide open competition, it's not a problem. If consumers have a choice, they don't have to buy from big pharma or big tobacco. They can buy from somebody else. They can buy from a celebrity they like, maybe like Willie Nelson. Maybe they want to buy his stuff as a perfect example. But I'm not afraid of all these people coming into the industry, as long as it's left wide open. When you have high licensing fees that only certain people can get and things of that nature, you start to have a problem. Smaller, better competitors that will not only make the big corporations work harder for your dollar, but maybe replace the big corporations. It happens all the time. I mean, Sears 100 years ago was the top retailer in America. Now there's no Sears, it's Walmart and Target and such. There will be shifts that go on. But the competition has to be allowed. It has to be open as possible. The lowest fees possible, the least amount of regulations, the lowest taxes. It has to be as open as it can be made. And that is where the government comes in, becomes a roadblock in many ways. Because that's not government. They are tight restrictions, tightly controlled, seed to sale coverage, knowing everything that's going on everywhere, telling businesses when they can open, when they can close, things of that nature. And in the end, when you have that and you have excessive regulations, there's only a few big companies that last that can overcome those regulations. As I said, a lot of times in a lot of industries, you'll find that the very regulations that supposedly corporations hate, they wrote. Corporations don't hate regulations, especially big ones. The bigger ones, the better. McDonald's doesn't hate regulations. Walmart doesn't hate it. They can pay them. They can pay for them. They can get around them. They can comply, whatever they need to do. But smaller companies, they may knock them off someday. They don't get a chance. They don't have a chance. And you have a problem. And will that be a problem in marijuana? Probably. Probably. But if your answer is, well, we'll keep Big Pharma out or whatever, no. Keeping people out is not the answer. More competition is the answer. And hopefully we get to a point where that's happening. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer, so I'm going to move on. I'm not hopeful of that outcome. It's the last story. From EerieNewsNow.com, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman recaps Pennsylvania marijuana listening tour. From February to May, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman traveled to each of the state's 67 counties on his marijuana listening tour after listening to residents give their input. He says most of them think it's time to legalize recreational marijuana. A significant majority of Pennsylvanians are ready for legal cannabis. I would put that at around 65 to 70%, said the Lieutenant Governor. He toured the state to gather opinions on legalizing recreational marijuana. It took him a little less than 100 days to do so. Lieutenant Governor says Pennsylvanians agree on a lot when it comes to cannabis. They don't want to see someone's life damaged or their opportunities diminished for a position over a plant. That's the phrase that kept coming up over and over. That's a plant. It's not a drug, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman explained. Now he's going to compile his notes from the 67 sessions and the online submissions, which total over 35,000 in the state. He will then submit a report to Governor Wolf. It'll be released for all residents to see, and Governor Wolf, for his part in Pennsylvania, has said he's waiting to see what his lieutenant governor's report has to say before he talks about the evolution of his position when it comes to adult use marijuana. He's been big on Twitter, especially Governor Wolf, in touting the medical marijuana program. He's been kind of iffy on recreational, and then he said, well, it's maybe something we need to have a discussion about and then look at, which led to this listening tour, which may one day lead to, hopefully in the next couple of years, recreational legalization in Pennsylvania, which will be huge, a very large, populous state. A lot of people can be helped, a lot of economic activity can be generated, a lot of jobs, all good stuff if they would just do it. There's the people waiting to buy the marijuana are there. They're there. They're ready. The fistful of money. They're waving it at you. Just come on. Give us a place where we can go legally buy marijuana, and we'll do so. Granted, if the prices and the quality and everything's commiserate and there's incentive to do so, we're ready. We're waiting to go. All things being equal, people would rather buy legally. It's just the way it is for obvious reasons. But I don't know. We gotta have a lot of listening tours and task force and study commissions, and I don't know. What are you studying? Marijuana's been around for a while. I think last I saw over 30,000 studies, something like that, on marijuana. I remember we're good. There's more to learn, obviously. More research needs to be done, but we're pretty good with where we're at with it. A lot of millions of people can testify that it's it's okay, it's fine. Just do it. Let's legalize it. It's fine. Don't have to worry about it after that. We'll be fine. We'll be over here with our marijuana. We're not going to bother anybody. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. That's the end of the week. Go enjoy your weekend. Go check out marijuanatimes.org. You can find us on YouTube and Vimeo as well. Search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts for the audio version of the show. Thank you to Nature Side, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you to all of you for listening, watching, sharing, liking, commenting, etc. We'll see you next week right here on Cannabis News.